If you just, I'm signing, so if, I'm signing, so if I don't look up at you, you can just give me a heads up. We have a recording system, we're waiting to switch over to the committee of the whole section, so I don't want, we're live now. Okay, so we are, the board members can please make sure you got your microphones on. We'll start the committee of the whole meeting. Ready, Bridget?
Ready.
Okay, good evening. The hour being 7:29 PM, I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, January 22nd, 2024. Bridget, can we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Here.
Trustee Cote?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks?
Here.
Trustee Nearmatsu?
Here.
Trustee Gahuli?
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Here.
And President Garvey.
Here. Thank you, Bridget. The first item, we have a discussion for some text amendments suggested by staff to Section 56-199 sewer and Section 56-311 cross-connection and control inspection and maintenance of the village code. And as usual, we have a very detailed memo from staff on this. Vincent Smith, our Public Works Director, wrote a detailed memo for the board. But Vince, do you want to add anything or fill in, just maybe give a brief summary for anybody listening or the members of the public, what you're recommending here and why?
Yes. So the proposed changes to the sewer and the cross-connection code are minor text amendments that reflect the MWRD watershed ordinance for the sewer code, and the cross-connection minor text amendments reflect the Illinois Department of Public Health plumbing code. And then we're striking out the previous vendor that we use for our cross-connection compliance tracking system. And just these minor amendments will harmonize the village code with the MWRD and the Illinois Department of Public Health.
So this is basically a housekeeping to update with some changes that, our review of our policies and ordinances came up with?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so, questions or comments from the board for staff?
No. Nope. That makes
Okay.
that sounds good.
All right, Vince, thank you for the time and the memo. We will put this up for the first meeting in February to address. Okay, and then the second and last item we have up is a discussion about amending various sections of the village code pertaining to advisory commissions and committees. Our village management analyst, Bob Uphughes, has spent some time reviewing what the status of some of our commissions and events. And again, the board has a very detailed memo prepared by Bob, but Bob, welcome, and if you could kind of provide a summary for the public as to what you're recommending and why.
Well, the village code still has on its books references to committees and commissions that are long gone, and also references to committees that have become redundant, essentially. So this is a cleanup to clean up the language of the list of designated commissions that actually exist, to make that appropriate, and to there is one board subcommittee, the Planning, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee, used to be called the PZ Committee, which has been made sort of redundant by the creation of the Economic Development Commission and, our hiring of a economic development consultant. But repealing the PZ committee has an impact on another commission that exists called the Fair Housing Advisory Committee. If the decision of the board is to go ahead and repeal the PZ committee as recommended, there will have to be some change in the language of the ordinance regarding the Fair Housing Advisory Committee with regard to who makes up its membership.
Thank you for the looking at, this is something we've been meaning to do, to look into some of these disbanded committees or committees that haven't met. And I remember the creation of the PZ committee and the policy behind it, but it does seem that the new steps we've taken with the Economic Development Committee and staff seems to have, alleviated the need for that. Obviously, this board is updated and has a liaison to the Economic Development Commission that meets on a monthly basis. In terms of the steps that would be taken if the PZ was abolished and how to comply with the Fair Housing Advisory Committee, is there other steps that we'd have to take or at that point, or?
Adam, can you speak to that?
Yes, I think what Bob was touching upon was that we just have to make sure we maintain this mechanism for processing these complaints if the board still wants to process fair housing complaints, as we've done in the past, was have a commission do it as opposed to staff. So I'm more than happy to work with staff about pointing out to what the domino effects are by repealing these and presenting options for continuing services and responding to public issues. Writing mechanism, we're allowed to do so.
So in terms of with the fair housing complaints, I'm sure it's the board, something wants to address in one way or another, whether it's a committee or board or staff. I mean, you can give us options on that going forward?
Yes, and briefly speaking with Bob, working with potential changes to the code to eliminate some of these commissions, we pointed out to each other that, well, this Fair Housing Advisory Committee is actually one that processes complaints. Some villages do it through appointed people serving as a commissioner or committee, and some villages do it through staff processing the complaints. So just one of the issues that we'll deal with, and I'll present options for staff and this board.
I mean, and again, the board can interrupt me if they don't agree. Obviously, we haven't had issues come forward with the Fair Housing Advisory Committee or concerns or complaints, but I don't know if the board would feel more comfortable before we abolish the PZ, well, I guess the PZ committee doesn't have standing members right now, but should we come up with a new system for dealing with the fair housing and, enact it at the same time that we abolish the PZ committee to leave, so there's not a gap there? Is there a concern about that?
No, I think we should after we get rid of the PZ committee, abolish that we should still consider our options, as Adam pointed out, for fair housing, whether it be staff or whether we appoint a committee or we appoint somebody, people on the board or something to that effect. We should still move forward with that.
No, I assume that's the case. I know the PZ committee's not active, but I'm suggesting that maybe we don't officially abolish it until we've come up with the system of replacing it, was my point. Is there a thought about that or advice on that?
That's a good idea, because in the event that you do get a complaint or an issue that you need to bring the commission together to hear that complaint, you're going to need to appoint people. And I think, as the memo points out, is the people serving on that commission process those complaints are the same people that were on this existing commission, although that commission has not been brought together in a while, and we probably don't know who's sitting on it. So probably just as part of this cleanup, to probably appoint people to those positions until we decide to bring it in-house and have staff do it, if that is the direction we go.
Right.
So probably part of this cleanup, one of my suggestions is going to be, let's look to what commissions do not have current members on them or not are currently fully staffed by members, and bring that to the board's attention to staff them.
So maybe we could do this, I mean, Bob, I appreciate you bringing this forward. Maybe we could do the cleanup all at once in terms of at least cover this gap. I'd rather not take action to, abolish the PZ without having something in place for the fair housing. And if we could do it all at once, obviously, this is something that could have been done a while ago, but I'd rather get it all done at once.
So maybe you committee this again. I mean, President Garvey, if you recall, the PZ, I think, was yourself and 2 trustees, that the idea was to vet projects
Right.
coming to the village at that point. So we do have the Economic Development Commission that kind of does that. You have staff, but I don't think this is something simply that the Economic Development Commission takes the place of PZ in terms of the Fair Housing Committee. You know what I'm saying? So you had three sitting board members who were on PZ that would hear anything that came to the Fair Housing Commission. I don't think that should be the Economic Development Commission doing that.
No, I agree, but I guess committeeing the Fair Housing Committee replacement, so we can hear ideas from
Right.
Adam, if it could be staff, if it could be another committee of volunteers, or what the options, and then maybe implement those changes along with the other recommendations here
So just
tonight.
committee it again before we make the change. One question on the Electrical Commission. Some years back, we were trying to clean up some of these redundant or no longer needed committees. The Electrical Commission is not something we need for any reason, correct?
I don't believe so, but you are right. Trustee Ketchmark, there are some commissions that municipal governments are supposed to have on the books. and that is not one of them.
Okay.
President Garvey?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if, because if the board wants to maintain board members as the members of the committee who would be the Fair Housing Advisory Committee members, I mean, that could simply be a text amendment to the Fair Housing Advisory Committee language that states that the village president, will choose,
appoint,
will
yes.
appoint
Yeah.
members to that commission, just, remove the reference to the PZ committee.
And is kind of painfully obvious, the Fair Housing Committee hasn't had any actions or steps or complaints to deal with, so we're not familiar with what is needed or required. So that's why I was thinking that, I heard the village attorney state there is a possibility that it could be a staff function if it was delegated by the board. I just wanted to give the board the chance to hear the various options where they wanted it to be a committee created by the president and members of the board, or another standing committee, or if we could delegate it to staff. And I don't think that will take too long to do that. I mean, to give us those options, and then, because again, I appreciate all the work on this, and, I'd like to take care of some of this at the next meeting, but I'd like just to almost do it all at once. So if we can get the board the options on how to deal with the gap with the Fair Housing Advisory Committee, and then adopt this all at once is my thought.
To clarify, how was it done before? It was board members?
The PZ.
That was before.
The way-
PZ was board members.
Or PZ was board members. okay.
Yeah.
PZ was board members, and they were to hear any fair housing. In all my time on the PZ committee, I did not have any fair housing complaints to deal with. So there's just part of me that just doesn't want to leave the gap, and doesn't not want to necessarily just take a knee-jerk reaction and create a, fair housing committee, when maybe the board might want to have it covered by staff or some other group, so.
Yeah, in my initial help with Bob, when he was looking to create this committee of the whole memo, it is municipal power to create a committee to process fair housing complaints, but you're not compelled to do so. And I briefly looked at some other communities. It's about half and half when the few that I've looked at, that they either process them through appointed officials, elected officials serving in those capacities, or village staff.
So maybe just a brief committee at the next committee about what the Fair Housing Committee does, what their responsibilities, obligations, processes are, and then, I'd be willing to have a recommendation from staff as to, do they think it's something the board should do, or whether we should delegate it to staff, and then the board can make a decision from there. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Again, thanks for all the work on that, Bob. Appreciate it. I don't need for you to go back in the class before I keep talking, or do I? Bob is also directing the TV feed for the meeting, so that's why we're, so that ends the items we have on the committee of the whole. Once again, I will open up the meeting to public comment. Is there anyone on this side that would like any additional public comment? Seeing none, is there anybody on this side that has any additional public comment? Okay, hearing no public. Steve, any need for executive session? Okay. There being no further business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole at 7:42.
So moved.
Second?
Motion's made by trustee Cote, seconded by trustee Gilhuli. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendrick?
Aye.
Trustee Nearmatsu?
Aye.
Trustee Gilhuli?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you for coming, everybody.